Welcome back, everyone. I have an awesome show for you tonight. I have author, researcher, lecturer, filmmaker, L.A. Marzulli. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm doing real good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I thought we start with, I know you've had done some fascinating research on the phenomenon at Fatima. For our viewers that may not be familiar, can you give us a brief overview of what happened in 1917?
Yeah, it's 101 years ago, and basically 3 children who were illiterate. They couldn't read or write. Very young. The eldest was 11 years old, Lucia. Francisco was 9, and Jacinta was only 7 years old. These are very small children who are basically uneducated. The only stories that they've heard are stories around fires at night or from the parish priest on Sunday morning. So there's nothing in their grid system to prepare them for what is about to happen to them. Fatima is a very complex set of circumstances, and we were over there for 2 weeks, and we interviewed experts that had spent decades researching the phenomena that happened at Fatima. Basically, to sum it up, an entity appeared to the children. Only the 3 children could see or hear her. And as word got out about this, the crowd swelled from a few thousand. The first apparition was in May. By July, there was maybe 20,000 people there. So just in a few months, the crowd started to grow. It became very controversial. The parish priest always believed it was demonic. Other people weren't so sure, so it was a mixed bag right from the get-go. So in September, they asked the children to go back and ask the entity for a sign. And the kids say, yeah, there's going to be a sign on October 13th. Word gets out, upwards of 70,000 people arrive at Fatima. It's been raining all day, and around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the clouds part, and the sun comes out, and then another cloud comes in front of the sun, and out of this cloud comes an object. It's not the sun, and that's what we really drilled down to in Fatima 1. That what happened there was not, the sun did not leave its place from the solar system. It was another object. And all of our source material came from the 1917 handwritten records, right from the witness's right from the witness's own mouth. So we don't listen to anything in 28 or 30s or the 40s. We go right back to 1917 handwritten testimonies by Father Fiera, who was then the parish priest, who basically interviewed everybody, interrogated everybody, and trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. That's what we drew from. And what we found was a completely different set of facts than what most people know today. There's 2 Fatimas. There's the Fatima of 1917, the handwritten documents, and then there's the Fatima which most people go in pilgrimage at and look at today and believe it was Mary of the Bible. We don't attack people's belief system. In fact, I go out of my way to state that in the film, that we're not just, people have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. But we do drill in on what we think happened there. And we've talked to witnesses, and it's amazing. The handwritten testimony of the people that were in the field on October 13th, 1917, many of them looked up and saw and stated on record, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. So back in 1917, there's nothing in the lexicon or in the vernacular like UFO, flying saucer. Those terms wouldn't come into being until the mid-19th century, or the mid-20th century, rather.
That is fascinating, and I also understand that some other phenomenon occurred that day, such as skin burns, car windows exploding, and other filaments falling from the sky. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. That's why we call it strange phenomenon, Fatima 2, and we delve into all that. Gasoline spontaneously combusted when the craft, this disc-shaped object, flew over the crowd. Many of them experienced burns on their skin. Their clothes instantly dried. The ground instantly dried. So there's some sort of heat exchange going on. And what's interesting is this phenomenon lasted between 10 and 14 minutes. And it was captured on film, some of it. And when I say film, glass plates, old camera, click, 12 photographs were taken by Joshua Benolio, a photographer. And we also published a book by Jose Machado with the photograph clearly showing an object above the apparition site, a round circular object above the apparition site. We think it's a smoking gun. We really do. We think finally we've got a picture of what people were seeing, and it's not the sun. And this object is intrinsic in the glass plate. It's not a smudge. It's not a chemical stain. It's intrinsic. It's embedded in the glass plate itself. So the object is there in the sky, and that is a completely different set of circumstances than what we've been told.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. That was a fascinating picture. And given all this information and based on your research, and also based on the mainstream media talking a lot about UFOs lately, do you think they're aiming at some sort of mass deception sometime in the future?
I would say this, definitely disclosure. In fact, I did my own show today, PPS Report, and I did a PowerPoint presentation with my video screen behind me, and we're basically saying warning, UFO disclosure is imminent, and it is, and that's the ultimate game changer. That's the paradigm shift, which will blow people out of the water, especially if we see footage of real craft or whatever. I mean, this thing is coming down. Fox News, as you pointed out, has been all over it, and they've released documentation. And this is what I talked about this morning. It's like, how does a guy, an unknown pilot, ex-pilot, like this guy Fravor, get on Fox News? I mean, he's not a player. Nobody knows who this guy is. He's not a general. He's like he's a flyboy. And I say that with all due respect. He's a really good flyboy.
Right.
But he's a fly guy, and that was years ago, and he winds up showing the video on Fox News. How does that all work? Who sets that up? Where does that classified film come from? And then all of a sudden, voila, it's now declassified. You can show it on Fox News. No one's asking those questions, but, I'm asking those questions. I mean, I won't say no one. I think other people have looked at that and go, how does this guy get on Fox News? Not only that, but since that was in December, Fox News has had a series of what I would call disclosure conversations on Tucker Carlson's show. We're probably due for something here rather quickly, soon anyway, because it's been, a couple of weeks, or at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 since the last one they've had on. So they're due for something. And what's incredible about this, Chris, it's ongoing, and yet most people are ambivalent to it. They don't really care. There's a laissez-faire attitude. There's, what does this have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. If they show up, or if they really reveal, just let it out of the bag, and they're already doing that, that's a global paradigm shift. That changes the world as we know it, especially if the crafts show up. If the crafts show up, we're looking at a whole different deal.
Yeah, definitely. We are definitely due. I agree that there's a lot going on. Full disclosure would be amazing. I just don't know if they would do that, but that would certainly be amazing. And something else that would be amazing is if they could admit what is really going on with these elongated skulls. I'd like you to talk a little bit of that and about your trips to Peru and, maybe possible Nephlim connections.
Well, it's too early to say whether they're Nephilim. However, there are these elongated skulls that we find in Peru. There seems to be genetic aberrations. In other words, it's not the result of cradle headboarding. And this is why we're trying to get a consortium of doctors, archaeologists, anthropologists to look at our data, the DNA data, look at what our team presents, and weigh in on it. And it's just amazing. In academia, there's everything is sacrosanct, no intelligence allowed. Ben Stein's movie, Expelled. Anyone who thinks outside the existing paradigm is branded a heretic. I mean, it's just amazing. So, no new steps, basically. That's what we're looking at. No new steps.
Yeah.
And, crowd-pleasing steps. Can't have that. And that's really what we're looking at. What we found were genetic anomalies in the skulls, which shouldn't be there, and yet they are there. This is all in our DVD. We have it's like almost a 3-hour press conference. 8 people presented, our team presented. And then we also have a book on the DNA elongated skulls, and there's just a wealth of information in both of those two offerings, and you can check that out by going to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and you'll check out the DNA results. Again, the prevailing paradigm is all these elongated skulls are cradle headboarded, cranial deformation, when they take a child and bind the head, bind the skull, and shape the skull. Well, that's not what it happened in some of the skulls. We get that, but not in all of the skulls.
Right.
And that's why that's why we're off to the races. Our team is a multidiscipline team. We have an archaeologist, Mondo Gonzalez. Our anthropologist is Rick Woodward. Dr. Michael Alday is an MD and practicing for decades, and Dr. Malcolm Warren is a chiropractor. So that's the nucleus of a team. And you've got Chase Klodsky, who's our forensic field expert, Richard Shaw, the director of the Watcher series, who comes down and gets all this on film. He did a wonderful compilation of our years in Peru, and that's our team. And we're not done yet. We've got other stuff in the fire, which I won't talk about right now, but those results will be forthcoming.
Very good. I can't wait for that. Now, there's a lot of speculation about, giant remains and giant remains that were found and the actual size of these beings. Can you speak a little bit about that?
About what was found? You broke up.
The size of these remains that were found.
Yeah. What's interesting about this, again, anything that goes against the prevailing paradigm is swept under the rug. And we see this even in the Fatima film, where there was a fourth witness who gave her testimony about seeing an entity. Oh, we just won't deal with that at all. And so it's completely obfuscated, lost from history until Fina di Armada, who really is one of the pioneers, along with Joaquim Fernandez, who ferreted out this information. But we see that anything that doesn't fit the paradigm, whoops, we won't talk about that. Well, it's just like with the giants. When you talk to archaeologists or anthropologists who have never, these are modern guys who have never looked at these, never were there 150 years ago, 200 years ago, obviously. And all they're doing is parroting the party line. Well, they couldn't measure. Well, they were trying to sell papers. Well, all these accounts are false. All of them are false. Everybody has the bright idea, well, we'll write about giants and sell papers. Medical doctors and judges are putting their names on these testimonies to perjure themselves. I'm not buying it. And my work out on Catalina Island, where Ralph Glidden, who was an archaeologist, I use the term extremely loosely, but he was employed by the Hay Museum between 1919 and 1921. And this is all in my book, Armored Trail of a Nephilim, Volume 1 and Volume 2, where we see these gigantic bones, a gigantic skeleton right in front of them. It's one of the few pictures that we actually have of real proof. And we had 3 investigators look at the picture, verify the picture, and extrapolate the size of this skeleton, and it's just under 9 feet.
Wow.
That's a really big guy.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes for an enormous being. And speaking of enormous, there's a great mystery behind these enormous megalithic structures throughout the planet. It seems no one can give a definitive explanation on how these were built. Can you talk a little about that?
Well, you're talking about some of the things in Peru, but there's places like Baalbek, the island of Malta. There's places in Italy. It's all over. Megaliths are found everywhere.
Yeah.
And when we were in Peru, we went to a place called Sacsayhuaman, and that place has very, very large megalithic stones. Some of these that are weighing over 100 tons, and they're fit together absolutely perfectly with great precision. And they don't know how it's done. Archaeologists, again, they won't, show me. It's just like, and I'll bounce around here for a little bit. An archaeologist will go, oh, the Inca did it. Well, how did the Inca do it? Well, they used copper chisels. Well, copper won't cut andesite. So we have a real problem. Have you actually, hey guys, hey archaeologists, have you actually spent time using a copper chisel and carrying out your theory to see if it works? Well, no, Mr. Marzulli, we haven't done that. Well, what are you guys smoking? Now you translate that to here, and you go to a place like Cahokia, where they show a hoe with a flint, a hoe head, a flint hoe head, wrapped with deer hide on a wooden stick. That's the hoe, allegedly, that Native Americans used to break the soil and then gather that up with clamshells or whatever, put it in the deer hide, and carry that to Cahokia Mound. The second largest mound is Poverty Point, which is 390,000 tons of earth. Cahokia is bigger. 450,000 tons of earth is the largest earthen mound in North America. And that's what they would have us believe. So the question is, well, how many hoe heads have you found at Poverty Point when we were there? Oh, about 25. Well, don't you find that kind of bizarre? 390,000 tons of earth moved. How many hoe heads did they break? Has anyone actually taken a replica of the hoe and gone out and see how it works? Well, we haven't done that, Mr. Marzulli. So it's conjecture on your part. You have no idea how these things were done, but you're assuring us that this is the way it was done, and you're adamant about it. And anyone who goes against that is a heretic. That's how the game is played. So we are actually, in the movie I'm working on, the new film I'm working on, we spent $300 on a replica of a hoe. It's made out of flint. It's exactly like you would find 2,000 years ago. And in about 2 weeks, we will be testing that hoe in the field and busting sod. We're not going to go on a nice soft soil. We're going to bust the sod, because that's what these people had to do. So we're going to do that. We're going to see how long it takes to get a bucket full of dirt. We're going to see and film it all. And we're going to show you, in 8 hours, this is what one man can do with this kind of a material. And I think it's just going to blow a hole in the whole theory. You see, these people make up names like the Hopewell, the Adena, for these people that built the mounds in America. And the bottom line is they have no idea who these people were and what they call themselves. But they're going to tell us everything about them. And what they do is they say, well, these were Native Americans, but Native Americans who survived after they abandoned the sites forgot that they had built the sites. It's just like, what? I mean, they just make it up.
Right.
Well, why don't we go to some First Nation people and see what they say about these things? It's unbelievable. They make it up. Well, they were, upwards of 90% of the people were wiped out in diseases. Okay, that's interesting. But the sites were abandoned, and Native Americans, like in the Newark Circle Mound, come in and they see this and they go, when asked, well, who built this? They say, we don't know. It was here when we got here. So why would a people abandon a site and never go back there? And then they never tell their generations? Of course you would. I mean, that would be you would find some way of communicating that. But nope, archaeologists are so sure that Native Americans forgot about it, forgot about all these sites. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, the way they suppress the evidence and just things that are obvious, it's amazing. So I'd like to get back a little bit to some of these entities. Now, would you say, just based on your own theories, interdimensional or alien, or both?
Well, I truly believe that what we're looking at, these are interdimensional entities. And they come in, they go out, they manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. You see, if we are intellectually honest, we have no idea what this is or where we are. We don't. No one has any idea. And that's why it's, we look out at the universe. If the universe is analogous to the United States of America, are we in Tampa, Walla Walla, Duluth, Los Angeles, Dallas? We don't know. No one has any idea. We have no idea what this is or how we got here. Oh, the Big Bang. Oh, really? So how did that work? It's all speculation. It's all theory. No one knows what this is, how we got here. I am an ardent creationist. Darwinism, in my opinion, is the biggest bunch of hooey that's ever been foisted on the American public. And this is just the way they think. They have a theory. Oh, this sounds good. We'll go with this. And it becomes the existing paradigm in both academia and the scientific community. And it's just made up. They have no idea how any of this works. And Darwin if he had known about the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, the DNA molecular structure, he would have been blown away. Because that's a complex coding system, which everything on life, everything in this world has DNA, everything. So when two hummingbirds mate, they don't get a humpback whale, because the coding is going to create another hummingbird, not a humpback whale. Conversely, when a humpback whale's mate, you're not going to get a hummingbird, because the coding is there and it's locked in. You can get minor mutations, and usually those mutations are not good. Usually. You can get minor mutations. And this is where Darwinism just completely falls apart. Oh, look, these finches on Galapagos Island, they had bigger beaks. Well, fine. Because maybe the nuts were harder to crack, and over a period of generations, they developed bigger beaks. I get that. You know, Native Americans were 5'6". Europeans were 5'6", okay? So now in modernity, you know, average height of an American is what, 5'10", 5'11"? So we've gone up. Why? Better food, better diet, and that's part of that is passed down from one generation to the next. But I'm still a human being. I'm not becoming a chimpanzee or a kangaroo. That's not happening. You know, I'm not waking up in the morning and growing a tail and long ears and hopping around the bedroom. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And we don't see any species on the entire planet that's becoming something else. It doesn't exist. Everything reproduces according to its kind. Now, when scientists get in and mess with the genome, they can create chimeras. And this is why the biblical prophetic narrative states, the guidebook of the supernatural states, it'll be like the days of Noah when the Son of Man returns. And what differentiates the days of Noah when we go back to pseudepigraphical books like the Book of Enoch, which state emphatically that these fallen angelic beings had sex with the animal kingdom. In other words, they are mating and creating chimeras. Chimeras, Katy Perry's video, E.T. video, at the end of that video, she finally disrobes, and we see what she really is. She goes from being E.T. out in space, right? Then she morphs into the Katy Perry character, which looks human. Then when she falls to Earth, when she disrobed, she's not fully human. She's a chimera. She's half human from the waist up, but from the waist down, she has the legs of a fawn. That is a chimera, half animal. It's a mixture of a species, and we see this chimeras all throughout the ancient world, in the winged gods of Samaria, in the Greek mythos, where the Minotaur, the Centaur, all these things. So it's there. It's part, and people go, well, that's just mythos, L.A. Not so fast, citizen. You don't know that. These beings walked the earth at one point, and they must have been terrifying to encounter.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Well, finally, one last thing I'd like to get into. What can you tell us about Antarctica? There's been a lot of activity there the past couple of years with our leaders traveling there, military bases. Can you talk a little to that?
Well, here's what we know about Antarctica apart from speculation. One, Adolf Hitler was very, very interested in Antarctica. Missing submarines from the German fleet which have never been found. The Germans had a base there called New Schwabenland. That's what we know. You can access Antarctica in the summer. You can charter a plane and fly to it. So the idea that Antarctica is forbidden is nonsense. You can go there. You can Google that, fly to Antarctica. Not something that I really want to do, but you can go to Antarctica and you can explore it. So is there something found underneath the ice? Anything's possible. It certainly could be a reality. I don't know. That's what I know about it. I don't have any intel that's telling me otherwise. Steve Quayle might, but I don't.
Okay, very interesting. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? Anything you got coming up that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, we are offering a trip to Peru, and that will be in July. If you're interested, you can go to lamarzulli.net, and you can sign up for that. We need a minimum of 15 people, but the numbers are starting to swell a little bit here. The cutoff date is June 1st. If we don't have 15 people, we'll bump the trip up into January until we get 15 people. So that's kind of where we are. Obviously, Fatima 1, Fatima 2, they're just groundbreaking material. We published Jose Machado's book under our publishing house, Spiral of Life, and it shows the photograph in that book. It's also in the film. So if people are interested in this, and I hope they are, because in fact we're actually offering a special. We're offering Fatima 2 and my UFO film in their own words, which is an hour and 37 minutes long. We're offering that. It's a 48-hour sale. It'll start at 9 p.m. tonight. 48 hours, and that's it. You get both films plus a bonus DVD for $20, $19.99. It's an incredible offer. It's a $50 deal. Why? Because UFO disclosure is imminent. And the title says, warning, UFO disclosure is imminent. And it is. It's going to happen. And all I'm trying to do, look, I spent hundreds of hours researching. I'm entitled to get something back from that. I wish I could give it out for free. But I need to keep the lights on, as you can see here. We've got expenses just like you do. People work for a living. Everybody who watches this on YouTube, all you guys out there, men and women, you work for a living, okay? You're not getting free stuff as much as we all want it. Well, it's the same thing with me. Hundreds of hours to go into Fatima and create that DVD. Hundreds of hours to create, in their own words, UFOs are real. Warning, warning. This UFO disclosure is imminent. It's going to happen, and that's why we're running this special.
Great, and I can't wait for that. And I've seen your recent DVDs. Very fascinating stuff.
Thank you, Chris.
And LA, I would really love to have you back sometime soon. If you're interested in doing that, that would be great. And I want to thank you again for coming on tonight. And
thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And people can go to lamarzulli.net. lamarzulli.net. The special is up right now. But thanks for having me on. Sorry for all the mix-up with Zoom and stuff.
Oh,
we should try to get together again. Been a good interview. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, LA. We'll talk to you again later.
Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.